It's Harrison Price for Tuesday, April 22nd.
Dramatic.
What's that smug look?
It's a little dramatic there, that's all. It's okay, you got there.
So here's the thing, is that we have a broken mic position to my left, and so now I've had to switch to the mic position on my right.
And you forget.
But the corresponding box beneath my seat does not turn on this microphone. It turns on that microphone, so I screwed that up, and I'm on errors and omissions in record time this afternoon. But Mike's going to fix this mic.
Yes.
Stands to reason.
Yeah.
Or we're just going to get a new one. Anyways, this is the Nation Network studio. Other than this mic stand, it works perfectly well. And it's built by Arbor Lee, who did a fantastic job setting this place up at the historic Wall Center in this program, a presentation of Bet 365.
All those years ago, by the way. We just passed our anniversary a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes.
You don't do anniversaries or birthdays, though, so it was not.
Especially a weird number. It's 4.
Come on.
No, we'll talk about it
honestly,
next year.
4. Like, who's making a big deal out of 4?
Toddler.
I'm Matt. He's Blake. Our producer is Mike Rogerson. He's a 4-time Juno Award winner. He's hitting switches and conducting things with intern Jaden Tasha in the producer's booth.
Jaden was pumped about the Warriors.
Jaden works for the Warriors. He's absolutely stoked for this weekend in the big playoff game against Rochester, and he should be. They haven't been in the playoffs in 8 years.
Playoffs of anything in this city should be celebrated.
We're doing playoffs in the city of Vancouver. That in and of itself is notable.
For sure.
All right. Did I say this program presentation of Bet 365? Okay.
I did, yeah.
Good. Okay. I'm still rattled from Rutherford's press conference yesterday.
I think a lot of people are.
I haven't quite gotten over that. And we're going there on the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. Did yesterday's press conference increase your confidence in Canucks management? See, no house of negativity here. Did it increase your confidence? We're asking it positively framed. And my answer is no. Top marks, as I said yesterday, when taking on this guy, because like this guy wants transparency and candor, but not too much. He needs more diplomacy here, so you've got to like walk a line with Blake. Like it's a trapeze. Yeah. I commended Rutherford for his honesty, for his candor on topics like Quinn Hughes and keeping Quinn Hughes around, on topics like Elias Pettersson and what needs to happen there, on topics like the second line center or the top 2 center hunt and doing it via trade, as well as the practice facility where he basically laid it all out. I don't quite think they took ownership for letting Miller and Pettersson get to the level that it got to. I don't quite think they took ownership, although the question wasn't really asked, so it would have been incumbent on them, for a god-awful trade deadline where you had 1 foot in column A, 1 foot in column B, didn't improve the team, didn't help set it up for better success going forward. And, of course, that is very much at the offing of the owner and wanting to make the playoffs every year. But the fact of the matter is in these jobs, you have to own it, right? Like you are at the beck and call of the owner. And, we know Francesco's not going out there and taking questions. We know Francesco's not going out there and taking responsibility. And so when tasked with having to work for an owner like that who wants to be the hero but doesn't want to take any of the blame, you have to, act accordingly and take the bullets sometimes. And I would have liked to have heard something on that, which was left unsaid. Again, it was not asked of them. But here's the thing. They unleashed Miller on Pettersson, which was altogether the wrong move. Like, I can't believe they didn't sort of look at the personality involved there and say, it's one thing if it comes from Rick Tocchet, but knowing the history with Miller, allowing that to go forward unencumbered, like basically viewing JT as someone who would be constructive in trying to get Elias to the place where Elias needed to get to, I think was a terrible misjudgment of character, a terrible strategic error from this group. And, needless to say, there were other things yesterday that I see Canucks fans are looking at and are giving them pause. We have heard more and more comparisons to the Benning era more recently. We have heard more and more people wondering about, okay, well, like, what's Rutherford's role if he can't keep the owner out of hockey ops? We have heard more and more criticism out of Patrick Allvin. They full-throated endorse Rick Tocchet yesterday, and that gets them on the wrong side of other fans. So, no, it did not increase my confidence in this Canucks management team. I think for the most part, this is a pretty good group. They have made some mistakes. Every management team is going to make mistakes. You're not batting 1,000 in this world. And then the other thing, Blake, and we didn't talk about this a lot yesterday, but you tell me, why are the UFA centermen not going to be sufficient? Like Rutherford said at one point yesterday, we'll have to do better than that. God, John Tavares is a pretty good player. Matt Duchene's a pretty good player. Sam Bennett's a pretty good player. We've heard they like Jack Roslovic now in Carolina, going back to his Columbus days. We didn't really get that. Again, it was not asked by way of follow-up, and it was a relatively brief session. They did want to cut it off at the pass. I think they understand that rambling Jimmy there might have got himself in a little more trouble. But did you understand that part?
I think there's too much risk in the UFA class in terms of their age. I think if you're acquiring a 28-year-old Matt Duchene, I think you'd feel differently about it. I just don't think that if any of those UFAs saw a 30% decrease in their offense as soon as next season, I don't think anybody should be terribly shocked given the ages of all those guys. And the fact they're playing on a pretty darn good team, all of those guys. So their stats, even as is, are probably propped up by a pretty deep and accomplished team around them. You put them on a struggling team that has younger pieces like the Vancouver Canucks, you don't necessarily get that. And so I think they're trying to get to permanent solutions, not to Band-Aids. And the UFA guys, if you could get them on short-term deals even, would still just be Band-Aids. They want to get the center ice position locked up so that Quinn Hughes can look at it and go, okay, we're good for a while here. You go and get Matt Duchene on a Band-Aid deal, Quinn Hughes is like, yeah, but that's not really solving the problem per se. And in fact, he's a bit of a block now to the problem, to the issue, because you can't actually bring in the center of tomorrow because you got an old guy that's just trying to patch the dam for now.
He's not necessarily a block. You can improve on it. I hear what you're saying.
I was emboldened a little bit by what they said. I'll vote yes.
You voted yes? Okay.
I'll vote yes because the difference between Jim Benning's era and this one is that everything was okay in the Jim Benning era. Don't worry, they have this under control. No, we're pretty sure that blah, blah, blah. There was always this confidence of, don't worry, we got this. I like the fact that, the bright side of their honesty yesterday while giving away some cards and their hands, they clearly know what's up with this team. Like they like how many times? No, how many times did a Jim Benning press conference and you're thinking, are they seriously trying to tell us that blah 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 is blah blah blah?
They were so out of touch with the fan base. Look, the fan base is worried about top two center. Jim absolutely addressed that head on. The fan base is worried about Quinn Hughes' future here. Jim absolutely addressed that head on. The fan base wants to know who the coach is going to be and what Elias needs to do to get back to being an all-star player and ultimately a championship centerpiece. And Jim also addressed that head on. And Patrick addressed a number of those topics, or some of them, adding some flavor, some sprinkling into it as well. we mentioned this yesterday, but we didn't want to play. We didn't play the clip, and I want to play the clip today because I want to be fair to them, but B, I do think it was telling on exactly what we were just talking about. Blake is taking on the issues that they perceive the fan base is interested or worried about. Because Rutherford sat down and just started talking and just started diving into the issues without any prompting. And I think he deserves credit for that because a lot of managers, probably less experienced ones, would have sat back and went, oh, I hope they don't ask us about that. I hope they don't ask us about it. Are they going to ask us about that? And Jim just went, he's fully comfortable in his skin. And the other thing I get the sense of when he talks is what would be 5-alarm crises for other managers without his experience and wisdom are just, okay.
This is what we have to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's very much not oh my God, I got to spend time fretting and worrying and pulling my hair out about this. He's like, okay, this is the task at hand. So here's Rutherford, how he started yesterday, if you missed this.
Start with the obvious that everybody knows and talks about. We had a very disappointing season that we feel bad about. We started the season as a lot of people would view the Canucks as a contending team. We ran into an unfortunate incident in the first half of the season that hurt the chemistry of our team, that we eventually had to make a trade that we didn't expect to make and didn't want to make. So we went from a contending team to a team in transition. And we've continued to transition the team since the JT Miller trade. We feel that our goaltending's in a good place, our defense is in a good place, and now there's work to be done on the forwards to get back to where we would like to be and should be.
It's a notable answer.
There you go.
Or not even an answer.
It's not even an answer.
No,
it's a statement.
But here's the other thing. Not a prepared statement.
No.
He's still off the cuff.
No.
But it's his vote in a poll question we've asked probably 2 times at least in different forms is what was the biggest reason for the Canucks' downfall? There you have it. Yes. That's his vote. Yes. Not injuries. Yeah. Not Thatcher Demco being gone.
But he immediately, in that statement, lets the fans know, I'm on your side. No, we're disappointed too.
Yeah.
It was a bad year. We had to contend with something we didn't expect to contend with or didn't want to contend with. Now, if you want to say you mismanaged that relationship, you unleashed JT on it's totally fair. And that's where I would have liked a little more ownership. But for the most part, he hit all the notes there. Well, now we're a team in transition. Got to fix the forward group. So, and leaves it on an optimistic note. That's the other part, too, right? And now we got to fix the forward group. And then, when later prompted, he would go into details there. So I continue to think that Jim Rutherford is an effective communicator for the Vancouver Canucks, even if his transparency and candor sometimes gets danders up and sometimes gets fans worrying because they're not accustomed to this. They're used to NHL speak. They are used to managers saying nothing. They're used to pablum. Bland, processed, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get that with Jim Rutherford, at least not at this stage of his career and life.
I don't like to go down the rabbit hole of the Canuck apologists that are out there, but I really do wonder what a lot of them were thinking after listening to that, because what they denied as reality was confirmed by the management yesterday.
Yeah.
And what do those fans now think of it now that they realize, okay, the shitstorm that we denied, it was real. It happened. Mm-hmm. And it was as big, if not bigger, than we anticipated. It did have all of those effects in the room. It did cost them the season. Mm-hmm. And you can love JT Miller all you want. JT Miller was a chief problem with this team.
Yeah. And I understand it from a fan perspective because a lot of them want to come to sports, to this team, seeking joy. They have enough negatives, anxiety, whatever in their life that when the team doesn't bring them joy, they do the ostrich routine, bury the head, hear no evil, see no evil. I get it.
Well, players
There's
aren't
no rules to being fans.
Players aren't automatons. They are not robots. They have feelings and moods just like we do, and stuff like this happens.
Here's the other thing. Most of them are flawed people.
Most people are flawed people.
No, but most of them are flawed people because most of them have gotten away with things in their life because of their excellence in athletics. They have enablers. They have people who look past certain things because they're awestruck of the way they can play a game. It's the one thing you come to learn very early on when you're in the sports media world is, holy shit, there's a lot of people in this world who don't function like lay people and have trouble functioning like lay people. And in some cases, it is because they are so great at athletics. It is because they are so singularly focused on excelling in this tippity top, 0.01% of the population that most of us don't experience in life. So it's understandable. It's explicable. Sky Training Canuck Elfrin with a super chat. And thank you. Our super chats are always open on YouTube. Half proceeds to the BC Mental Health Foundation. Says Rutherford has barely any hair to pull out. Yeah, it's true. Fair enough. Our friends at Surrey Mitsubishi giving you $500 off a new or pre-owned vehicle. Get yourself to the dealership, mention Sekerison price, and get your discount. Plus, if you are shopping for a vehicle and you're out there and you're getting quoted prices, you're getting quoted offers, bring it to Surrey Mitsubishi. They will do better. You score more, you save more value, more savings. 13820 104th Avenue in Surrey. Go visit our friend Daniel. Tell him we sent you. Let's get to our lineup. Our top story today brought to you by Yellow Dog Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Die-cast storyline set this summer and next season is all about keeping Quinn Hughes. Speaking of storylines that make Canucks fans uncomfortable, this was one that fans didn't want to confront just yet. And Jim Rutherford has laid it front and center now.
Yep.
There's no escaping it. It will now be the biggest story around this team. And for those of you who missed the answer on Quinn Hughes yesterday, we're going to play it here in a second. And then I want to come back, Blake, and I want to ask you a couple of things, speaking of uncomfortable questions, about how to solve this Quinn Hughes matter. Here's Rutherford from yesterday.
Agree 100%. The one thing that we will be sure of, that we will have enough cap space to offer him the kind of contract that he deserves. That's the one thing we can prepare for. And it may not boil down to money with him. He said before he wants to play with his brothers. And that would be partly out of our control, in our control, if we brought his brothers here. So there's many moving parts here. Agree 100%. This franchise cannot afford to lose a guy like Quinn Hughes. And we will do everything we can to keep him here. But at the end of the day, it'll be his decision.
And it's come out today, Dollywall and others saying the NHL is not going to go at him for tampering. There are some apologists out there who are referencing it as humor. I guess, yeah, there was a tinge of humor to it as well, but more often than not, the NHL is humorless. I mean, Gary. And I suspect the New Jersey Devils didn't kick up a fuss about this with the playoff series to contest.
Well, again,
because I think it would have to be the other team that would say, hey, that's a smoke signal to our players that he wants.
Again, it's not tampering when you have no agency over it. Generally, tampering is considering, hey, you're talking about our guy, tempting our guy who's going to be a free agent in a matter of weeks. You're trying to get in early into the negotiations.
But the Ottawa Senators threw up the fuss about Brady Tkachuk, who's not a free agent, Blake. So
That was, I mean, that
No,
was.
I think if
not
you
even
discuss adding players from other teams, technically you're in the realm of tampering.
But that was a
just
ridiculous
about-
storyline with Brady Tkachuk because
Yeah,
that
but-
was media only. The team didn't even say anything.
No, I know, but I hear you, but that was enough for the Senators to kick up the fuss. No, I think you need an aggrieved party, and I'm not sure New Jersey is grieved about this.
No. Who's the
And
victim?
again, they may have bigger fish to fry, and so then it becomes a question of are you one of Gary's guys, or is he going to make an example of you? Because that's how this league works, everyone.
He's one of Gary's guys. But let's be, again, clear. This was not a joke. There was no break in character. He's merely saying what we all know to be true.
Yeah.
Now, you can say, hey, there's no way a Hughes trade, like bringing the two Devils over is going to happen. And that's a fair comment. And you're 99% probably right on that. But to say that it was presented just as a little blah, blah, blah joke, I mean, he was just thinking out loud. He's just thinking, like, that would be the only way.
Let me ask you this then. It is highly unlikely you're going to be able to acquire both Hughes brothers from New Jersey. We went through this yesterday. Getting Jack would be achievement enough, unlikely enough. So was this a distant early awakening to Canucks fans about the possibility of a Quinn Hughes trade? And is there any world where Quinn Hughes, in his exit interview, or Quinn Hughes' representatives have already said to the Canucks, that melodrama this season, that's fucking one and done. We're not going through that again as captain. Having to sit there and answer all these questions about two teammates not getting along. Not to mention missing the playoffs. Is it possible they've already put the Vancouver Canucks on notice that anything like that again, and our guy won't be signing an extension and will want out next summer?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know. Like, if Quinn Hughes is hell bent on playing with his brothers, I mean, like,
and I don't think we're at hell bent yet, but
I mean,
but it's hard to know.
He's the soonest unrestricted free agent of the three, so
and the tidiest in terms of moving over.
Yeah, like. Again, if he gets the only hope here for the Canucks to take him away from this dream for the medium future is be very good and hope the hell that the Devils are not. And right now the Devils, because of injury and some shoddy goal, I don't think they
Luke
are very
Hughes,
good.
Brendan Dillon, Bershkelemen both out for Game 2 tonight.
So, and no Luke Hughes tonight either.
That's what I said.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
No, Jack obviously as well. There's a reasonable read of the Devils that they are not going to be great in the next couple of years. I think they'll be good. They're going to be a playoff team.
I mean,
but I don't know about great.
If Jack Hughes and Luke Hughes hit their future, and Simone Nemec hits his future,
Someone Nemec is going to be dominant in the next 2 years.
Bratt, Heischer are still in their 20s. Mercer in his early 20s. Yeah, I mean, Pesce and Hamilton are young enough. Seamus Casey, interesting young defender. Kovacevic, yeah, I mean.
Hamilton and Pesce are both on the wrong side of 30.
No, I know, but there's a world, Blake, where I could see the New Jersey Devils being one of the best teams in the East over the next few years.
Goaltending, very questionable.
Yeah. Yep, you may have to go out and get a goaltender, but of course, everyone will have cap space now. Okay, so let me ask you this question, and this is the stink bomb, everybody. I apologize for this in advance. But I do think it's something we're going to have to start considering, particularly if the Vancouver Canucks don't show themselves to be Stanley Cup contenders next year. Is there any wisdom in moving preemptively? Of understanding what's coming down the road, and that the best deal and the best course for the franchise, devastating as it may be in the immediate term, would be to make a Quinn Hughes trade this summer. Reunite him with his brothers in New Jersey this summer and ask for the sun, moon, and stars in return because you're effectively doing Jersey a favor here and getting him there a couple of years before they might have expected him to arrive.
I mean, fans would be devastated.
Yep.
If it
We
was
waited 50 years for this defenseman in Vancouver, and we trade him. But Blake, whether it's Pavel Bure, Trevor Linden, Roberto Luongo, like Vancouver Canucks have made some big trades in the past where huge heroes here have been sent elsewhere.
it would have to be just an unabashed win. And I don't, again, the Devils think they're on the right track.
Mike. You get the unabashed win now. I don't think you get the unabashed win next summer if you miss the playoffs.
Devils get some leverage there with only a year to go. They can wait a year. 2 years is a long way away. Lots can happen in 2 years. Tom Fitzgerald doesn't know what the future holds.
So give me Mercer. Give me Nemec. Give me maybe Casey too, Kovacevic. Give me some first-round picks. Do they have any top prospects there beyond Nemec? But if you sit there and construct like a 4 to 5, maybe even 6 asset haul out of the New Jersey Devils for Quinn Hughes, do you have to bring that? Vasiliev, the first-round defenseman, 10th overall. Do you have to bring that to the table? Talk about that with your pro scouts?
I mean, I think you can explore it lightly.
I shudder the guy who has to bring it to Francesco, but is that something you at least have to sit down and talk about in your inner sanctum this summer?
Well, again, we talked about Hellbent and Hell or High Water to play with his brothers. I mean, only they know truly their own doomsday clock, if you will. They know what the time reads on that doomsday clock.
Yep.
And so they've got that extra little bit of info that we have. We know the clock exists. The question is, what's the time on it? And if they feel like it's pretty close to midnight, and not in terms of the timing, but in terms of the urgency for Quinn, that it's a fait accompli, yeah, you probably want to explore that space just a little bit. If they think if it's a situation salvageable, that winning will cure this gravitational pull to his brothers, well, then you probably try to pick up a few more rocks and look under them first. But man, it's an uncomfortable position given he might be in the top 5 Canucks already all time to wear the colors.
I mean, we're going to ask this poll question this summer at some point, but Bure or Hughes, the most talented player to wear the sweater? It's one of those two guys.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, in terms of just raw talent,
yeah.
One of those two.
With all due respect to the Sedins and some of the other greats, like just teeming with talent.
Yeah.
Like you could take a being from another galaxy, beam them down here, put them in a hockey rink, and say, "What do you notice?" And they'll say, "Well, that number 43 is pretty special."
Yeah, and ultimately, hey, they traded Pavel Bure too, right?
Well, he wanted out and was willing to hold out, and so that is a different matter, right?
Yeah, you don't get as much in that space.
Like Pavel Bure went back on his word and his contract. That is a full-on mutiny. That is a rebellion. That is something to the day's number was retired that Pavel Bure worried, still stuck in the craw of Vancouver Canucks fans. And as we know, their friends Farhan and Moj and others, some of it did. Others were willing to forgive. I don't think it will ever get to those ugly depths with Quinn Hughes.
Now, the closest that we can think of in recent history for this kind of a deal was probably the Matthew Tkachuk deal. 1 year out, though, for him. Mm-hmm. They got a haul, but is it a haul that has changed the fortunes of the Calgary Flames in any way?
Yeah, well...
you have to do better than that. Right? I mean...
Huberdeau had a very nice bounce-back season.
But still not elite season.
No. You'll have to remind me.
Who's the full trade?
Yeah, Uyghur's a very good player.
Tkachuk in a fourth for Huberdeau, Uyghur, Cole Schwindt, and a
who just scored his first NHL goal, and not with the Flames, but
and a conditional first round in 2025.
Yeah, so that's this coming year. Here's what I would counter with: Quinn Hughes a better player than Matthew Tkachuk. Matthew Tkachuk is what, a top 15, 20 player in the NHL?
Yep.
Can you get him to top 10?
No.
I think it's stretchy.
No.
Quinn Hughes is a top 5 player in the NHL. No worse than top 10.
Yeah.
Arguably still the best defenseman in the world. A guy who plays more than Matthew Tkachuk, who affects games more than Matthew Tkachuk, who elevates teammates more than Matthew
He is
Tkachuk.
a rarer commodity.
Oh, unquestionably.
Defensemen like him are rare.
I mean, as rare as the power forward is, he's a winger.
Yeah.
He is somewhat reliant on a center iceman or line mates to get him the puck in good areas. He doesn't beat people with skating and edge work all that often, right?
Nope.
You can't stick handle in a phone booth. If people don't know what phone booths are, you used to have to go to them to make telephone before these things.
Also puts you shorthanded a fair amount, does Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah, and there's that as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think you look at that as a template and say, okay, replace Schwind with a better prospect or player and add me something of consequence beyond a top 6 forward, a top 4 defenseman, a top prospect, a first-round pick, and something else.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're on to 5 assets, and look, that should give you the ammunition to build a good team going forward. You may not have the star power. You may not have the difference maker on a night-to-night basis. You may ultimately have to go out and acquire one of those guys down the road when you're really thinking you're a contender and you need those separating pieces. But and put it this way, the sky would not fall. They would still play hockey games at Rogers Arena, and they would still win their share of them. I would say fair share, but I'm not that confident.
So the question would be, from the Devils' perspective, we could do that, or we could wait 2 years.
Yeah, but
how much
it gives you the extra 2 years in this window?
How much do we handicap? I'm speaking from the Devils' perspective. How much do we handicap our next 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're trading away blah blah blah. All these pieces.
But from the standpoint of the Devils, you look at their team. You look at some of the ages of these guys. That's their window. Myers 28, Bratz 26, Hischier 26, Mercer 23, Palat 34. How much longer is he going to be an effective player? Hamilton 31, Pesce 30, Markstrom 35, as you noted.
You said Dawson Mercer, Nico Hischier, not Dawson Mercer. You're not going for Mercer.
Oh, on the trade side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's something more.
Siegenthaler's 27, Jack's 23.
Anyway, a very uncomfortable conversation, and you do wonder how much they've had to bat that around.
We've had it here once. I promise you this will not be daily on Sig Harrison Price. The next time we talk about this will be if there's any movement on the file, if you will.
The danger of there's one other danger.
Like if Jersey goes down in 4 games here to Carolina and starts going, okay, how are we going to reimagine ourselves here? How are we going to get over in the East? Tom Fitzgerald sits down in a year-end presser and says, we have got to upgrade defense, or we have got to get more dynamic, whatever the case may be, then it's going to be talked about again in NHL circles.
Here's the danger. The Canucks sort of move, and we just heard Jim Rutherford say, hey, improving the forward core is going to be expensive and difficult. So let's say they go through that whole exercise. They spend a lot of money, put themselves not behind the 8 ball to re-sign Hughes, but they certainly max out everything, every other category, and are pretty immovable in other parts of the roster because of what they do this summer. And then Quinn just says, I'm still leaving. And then you put yourself into quite a corner.
Yeah.
And you're missing the cornerstone guy.
Which is why, Blake, I wonder when he said what he said yesterday, like, are they prepping an offer for Jack Hughes? Like, when he says we may have to require them via trade because we've got to do better than the UFA class, is he prepping something for Jack Hughes that's going to get New Jersey's attention?
I just can't imagine what that is.
No, I know. I hear you
literally,
too.
I can't bend myself into that contorted space to imagine what that is that attracts the Devils.
No, I hear you. But he's swung big trades in the past. Lots of big trades.
Yeah.
In Carolina, in Pittsburgh, and certainly here in Vancouver. I mean, January 31st was one of the single biggest days in Vancouver Canucks history in terms of a team makeover, with the Miller trades and then the Marcus Pettersson trade. I was on my deck in the sun on the weekend enjoying an Amigo crisp lager from Neighborhood Brewing.
Nice lightweight one.
That is absolutely one of my favorites, to sit there in the, as I sit there in the sun, I'm doing my reading, doing a little research, and enjoying a crisp lager.
They're good ones. They have the Honky Tonk Blonde Ale now as well. It's another bright brew that's got light malt backbone.
That goes down well in the sun as well.
Yeah, so it's starting to turn. Go check out that Honky Tonk Blonde Ale. It's a new beer. And turn up the volume. Let the Blonde Ale be the soundtrack to your next adventure. Go check it out from Yellow Dog.
Now we have to talk about Thatcher Demco, because we didn't talk enough about Thatcher Demco yesterday. Show was too big. Press conference was too meaty. There was an interesting quote. There was an interesting course charted.
By the way, James in the YouTube chat, as we finished up on Hughes, this is a frightening convo.
I understand, James. I understand. Believe you me, I went tepidly into this.
Oh, man.
Because we're in the midst of enjoying them. Like, think of what this season would have been like without Quinn Hughes, everybody. So it's not lost on anybody here in this studio.
And honestly,
we so enjoy watching Canucks hockey now compared to in the past, even in the Tocchet system, which is low event, because of number 43, because of the captain. We've waited so long for a defenseman like this. He's a pleasure to watch night in, night out. I think one of the reasons why season ticket renewals are at 90%, people want to go watch him live, pay good money, invest their time. Why not? These are such rare performers. To be able to experience them live 41 times a year in your market is extraordinary. And yet also, as we sat there and muddled through the season and watched Pettersson and Miller go pop and watched the season go pop around it, understand there's a cost for that. And that is, in today's day and age, where the best athletes, best performers know full well what their value is and are more and more inclined to take control over their careers. Because, of course, in decades past, you were basically chained to a franchise. The cost is, if you have seasons like that, if you have episodes like that, if you have mismanagement like that, you are going to lose the favor. You're going to lose the favor of these sorts of players. They're going to look around and say, I don't need this shit. I can be somewhere else.
But also, if you ignore the signs that players like that want to move on to somewhere else, you also lose years in your own rebuild, though, too. So you've got to be very...
it's even worse.
But let's be also, like, me and you were raised in the journalistic school of no cheering. I cheer Quinn Hughes. Like, I can't wait to see what he has up his sleeve anytime he's on the ice. And so it would be horrific for this market. Out of my seat. Yeah. It would be horrific to lose. But again, just because two things can be true at the same time, it would be horrific to lose him, but you also can't be so married to that or so worried about that that you're misreading the signs that he's given you that he's gone in 2 years.
When I think of the number of times, honey, come in, check this out, it's usually Quinn Hughes doing something.
And I'm not saying those signs are there that he's definitely gone into years. I'm not saying that's there, but if you're management, you can't ignore what signs he's giving you from this point onward.
A general manager's job in sports is to hope for the best and prepare for the worst.
Yeah.
And what we had yesterday was Jim Rutherford understanding his role, understanding his job, and also laying it out to you, the public, because he is transparent, because he is candid, and yes, because he is trying to strategically prepare you for this possibility. Ominous as it is.
Yep.
Demco. I was a little surprised to hear they're willing to do an extension with Demco, but it's a qualified answer. Here's Rutherford. We'll come back and discuss.
Well, it's a tricky one, and there's risk to it. There will be risk on both sides if there's an extension. The thing that I really feel comfortable with is leading up to him returning to play, he had a different approach to his training, which is more of a preventive training for injuries. I almost relate it to Gary Roberts when he was in Calgary and he had the neck injury and all the doctors said he couldn't play anymore. Nobody wanted to give him a chance. I traded for him when I was in Carolina and I said, I'll take that chance. And he had a certain way of training. And I relate this to what Thatcher has started to do. And Gary went on to play. He played in Carolina for a bit and then played a long time in Toronto after that with much more serious injury than Thatcher. So I like what he's found here and what he's done. He's 100% healthy now. He's in a great frame of mind. And we would like to extend him. Now, the question is, and it's a fool's game to negotiate publicly, so I won't get into that too much. But it's going to be a matter of how much risk the team is willing to take, and then how much risk is he willing to take as to the term of that contract.
Yeah, and I thought a very good and full answer there. I think he's absolutely right. And I think he was good to outline the approach to training or rehabilitation that Thatcher has drifted towards. And I think Demco would be the first to tell you there was a lot of trial and error on this popliteus injury early on in the season. I think it's also a credit to Thatcher that he stuck with this and found a way to best manage the injury. I also think it wound up completely scuttling his season to a degree, because I think he did get to a point where he looked around and went, okay, this ain't worth bleeding for. I've got to make sure I'm good for the rest of my career. And, he is still susceptible to the charge that he's injury prone because he has been injured a ton. What I heard from Rutherford was, son, we're willing to do an extension with you, but we're not paying you at the top of the goaltender market because you have to assume some of the risk with us based on your health and based on the number of games you've missed. And to me, that is total fairness here, Blake. I think the organization is well within its right. If it wants to do an extension, if Thatcher wants to do an extension this summer, as he professed in his year-end media availability, I was actually a little surprised that Thatcher was as strong on that as he was, that he sees himself as a Canuck and he wants to do an extension this summer. And I think Jim is wholly appropriate in saying, okay, but, to use the Tocchet line, you got to meet us at the 50-yard line. We're not going to the 75.
Yeah, I with this cap going up, I think a lot of players are going to feel like they've solely got the leverage. And it's going to be interesting to see what sort of pushback a guy like a Thatcher Demco, who's the Canucks have got a good case against, and that sounds terrible to say because it's not adversarial here, that you'd think they could have a constructive conversation about a contract, but the Canucks have a legitimate claim for care. Like they have to care here exactly what they're putting into this contract because of the risk. But a guy who's got the resume of Thatcher Demco might just say, not worried about it.
Well, and if that's the case, you have him under contract next year.
Yeah.
You bring him back. He's a trade chip at the deadline, or Kevin Lankinen is a trade chip. You get one more year out of Thatcher Demco. if he goes back to being a Vezina Trophy goaltender, then good for him. He's going to make some money, and you get to decide whether you want to pay it up till July 1st. And if he has another injury-riddled year, then you avoid the extension.
Or you get the discount extension
Yeah,
that they didn't want to sign.
There's that. Yep, absolutely. So, put it this way. I would not be surprised if the summer comes and goes and Thatcher Demco is not extended.
Keep in mind,
I would be quite surprised if the Vancouver Canucks jump in on a let's extend Demco at top of the market for goaltenders.
Lankinen has a no move next year. So if it goes unsigned, it would be Demko that would be on the block.
Dollywall reporting Derek Forbert had surgery on that broken orbital bone, suffered in the, well, I would say the fight, but he was prone on the ground and sucker punched. And there have been talks of re-signing him. We've talked about this for, well, really since the Marcus Pettersson, Victor Mancini, and then the emergence of Elias Pettersson, DPD. Really, a veteran like Forbert, and I think you're done on defense for next year.
Yep.
And frankly, the way Forbert played down the stretch, I'd be just as happy if it was him.
Yep.
And I think he'll be affordable, and he's a good culture fit. I think that would be a very good move.
Again, he had we forget it because he was so good in the second half of the season. An absence that was not his fault, obviously, with the death of a family member, but also he was injured as well.
Yeah, he got hurt. So
it wasn't an 82-game, like, easy peasy, nothing to see here season for Forbert. There was some, so I don't what I'm saying is I don't think
that's what you love about him. Like, he fought, he battled, he made sure that he was a presence, that he was a factor on the Vancouver Canucks when.
But I wouldn't double his salary.
No.
Like, I would ask for the same thing if I'm the Canucks.
I think you got to give him a little race with the cap going up. But no, there was a world where he was going down Vincent Desharnais Boulevard here. And he said, no, I'm not going out like that. I'm a better player than that. And he showed it. And commendable from Derek Forbert. Lou Lamoriello is out in New York. The Islanders are not renewing his contract. John Collins, the former NHL COO, he who brought you the Winter Classic, is leading the search for a new general manager. Those who have spent a lot of time or have talked with Lou Lamoriello in his latter years here running the Islanders, less so in his years with the Leafs and the Devils, will tell you that Lou very much falls in love with his players. We've seen this a little bit in terms of the extensions they've handed out, the unwillingness to trade Kyle Palmieri this year at the deadline, UFA to B. The scouts sounded like they were up in arms there, like in terms of, Lou, this isn't good enough. We've got to get better. Like, what's the holdup here? And it is going to be quite interesting to see, who gets the job, because they're going to have say on Patrick Roy's future based on what the Islanders announced today. But also, and you wonder if Patrick is a candidate there, right? Remember, he wanted to be GM in Denver too. But also, not just who gets the job, but what is the vision of that new manager? Is that an Islanders team heading to a full teardown rebuild? Is that an Islanders team hoping to do a retool? But needless to say, the status quo with the Islanders being a mid-pack Eastern Conference team, probably not good enough. They do have an extra first-round pick coming based on the Brock Nelson trade with Colorado. A lot of players still under contract there, and some interesting RFAs, including Noah Dobson's going to get a huge deal, right? Seplikov was a good rookie for them this year. Holmstrom's made some strides, so they have the makings of a young core there, and yet some veterans that I think would fetch pretty good prices on the trade market. I mean, if Bo Horvat's willing to waive, it's a darn good player.
You chase that, or you chase Matthew Barzal?
Well, I think Horvat, if he's willing to move, if he's willing to waive, is more gettable than Barzal.
Just because they'll ask for more.
Well, Barzal's got a modified no-trade, 22-team no-trade list. Well, just because I think they look at Barzal at 27, and they look at Bo at 30. And
yep.
Yeah.
That's fair. Barzal finishing on the injured
Well, he's
reserve.
hurt a lot too, Barzal.
2.5 months out to finish the season.
Mm-hmm.
You wonder if they're a little bit gun shy about his availability.
Yeah, that would be the one thing that I think would make Barzal available over Horvat.
He had a 58-game season in 22-23.
Has he?
80 last year.
Okay.
That was good. But then 58, 73 in 21-22.
Yeah.
And then he played the full shortened season coming out of the pandemic. He played,
But his best year was still his rookie year.
by 5 points. Last year was a good season. 80 points in 80 games last year.
No, he's a good player. He's a very good player. Maybe we'll see. I think the Barzal question is all about who ascends to the GM role, and to some degree, what is the mandate from ownership? Like, do you have license to tear down, rebuild? Ty Young, Josh Bloom reassigned to the Abbotsford Canucks from the ECHL affiliate in Kalamazoo. Some interesting decisions await Manny Malhotra and his staff as the Abbotsford Canucks prepare for Game 1 of their first-round Calder Cup playoff series tomorrow against Tucson out at Abbey Center. Because here's the thing. The AHL has a rule about veterans and how many veterans you're allowed to dress. And this rule applies in the playoffs as well. American Hockey League teams are allowed to dress 5 veterans who have played 260 professional games or more.
Not a lot of games.
That's NHL, AHL, ECHL, and European professional ranks as well. The Abbotsford Canucks have 10 players who qualify there.
And to tell you how quickly you can get to that, a guy like Danila Klomovic is probably 1 year away from doing that.
Yeah. You don't see many 18-year-olds in that league, but
you could be an 18-year-old in Sweden, and it's still the clock still starts.
And that's why Linus Karlsson and Nils Oman
they're
already
veterans.
qualify as a veteran. So they get to dress 5 of these 10. Phil DiGiuseppe, Sammy Blais, Linus Karlsson, Nils Oman, Surrey's Jujar Kara, Chase Wouters, John Stevens, always want to call him Craig, Christian Wolanin, Guillaume Brisebois, and Jet Wu has met the threshold as well.
So
5 of those, and then you have to have one player who's played less than 2. Basically, you need to have a prospect on every game sheet as well.
Stevens, Kara, Blais, and who's the first name on that list?
Stevens, Kara, Blais, Wouters, Oman, DiGiuseppe out of the forwards, and then Wolanin, Brisebois, Wu of the defensemen.
But the super vets are going to have a tough time getting in. Like one super vet per game, pretty much, of Blais.
Although they tend to be,
Kara.
like some of these guys wear letters, they tend to be sort of the, heart.
Yeah.
So that is the balancing act that an AHL coach goes through.
It's going to be interesting.
Let's get to today's menu, brought to you and Rinkwide Vancouver Abbotsford edition coming up. Let's get to today's menu, brought to you by Greta. Greta, fantastic spot to catch all the games, home and away. Pre-game, post-game, your steps from the arena and stadium. They have weekly drink specials, a awesome street food menu, the Bitchin' Arcade that surrounds the bar. Greta, 50 West Cordova, let the games begin. We'll talk to Laurence Gilman here. I mean, needless to say, someone who's accustomed to strategic communications from a managerial point of view and what he heard out of Rutherford and Alvin yesterday. And we'll talk to John Shannon as well, who basically, and he's known Jim Rutherford forever, and John basically sums up why Jim is able to speak as candidly as Jim speaks.
2 very adjacent conversations today. The affiliation with Jim Rutherford, as you mentioned, and then obviously the affiliation with the Canucks front office for Gilman. So great perspectives, unique perspectives on what happened.
Time now for the Bet365 bets of the day. I lost again yesterday. I haven't been very good here in the I thought St. Louis would even the series. You had whom?
I had a home dog, Dallas. Got it.
Carry on then.
Aren't you proud that I remembered my bet? Like, do I get any credit for that at all?
I mean, when you're asking for credit for achievement so small.
I really
Don't I get credit for turning on the right microphone throughout the first segment after that early
misstep? You didn't.
I actually just screwed it up again.
Yeah, there you go.
Seconds ago. Mike noticed.
I think what you need to do here, folks, is start to cheer against the New Jersey Devils. You need to start to make them doubt their
Except they'll say Jack
build.
Hughes wasn't in the lineup. If only we had Jack Hughes. And his brother.
Carolina -1.5 pays out a +105.
Luke Hughes also not in the lineup.
Yeah.
I like Florida to beat in-state rival Tampa in the series. So I'm going to take the Panthers to win game 1 at -105. I also think there's some wise money on Minnesota tonight just because the value at +190. They were pretty close in game 1. That's a big number for a team that isn't like a wash in injuries. So give me Minnesota as well at +190.
By the way, if you want to take Matt's devil's advocate view of this, have the Devils win without the Hughes in the lineup.
There you go.
Show that they can win.
Now we're talking,
huge
Blake.
value, +230 on the
Now
Devils
we're
to
talking.
win.
Now there's the counterintuitive guy that I
Yes.
know and
Yes.
like. If you want to get in on the action on the Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365, they got you. From game props, player props, totals, money line, you can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, Stanley Cup champions, and of course so much more. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older. Laurence Gilman coming up next. Let's take care of some price from the historic Well Center.
I'm pretty sure Bogey Juice is going to help my game this year. Not because I play any better with a drink in me, but it's going to take the pressure off the knee-knocking putts, which I'm not the greatest at. My luck from 4 feet in is
Luck, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's luck. I just close my eyes and hope at that point.
We'll call it luck then.
But now there's no pressure because when I lip out for the 5th time,
I've seen it.
pass one more shot over.
It's real.
BogeyJuice.com is where you want to go. Make missing your putts fun again. How about that hat?
Blake is one of the truly great self-admonishers on the golf course.
I thought you were going to say one of the
conversation,
one of the terrible putters, but
well, that too. But
Yeah.
the conversation with Blake, is something else.
yeah, and should not be published. No.
Sometimes if I'm in the other cart, our playing partner and I are sort of elbowing each other in the ribs as it gets going.
And you feel bad for Blake.
Oh, do we ever?
Yes. The one that's
So much empathy.
getting the tongue lashing. Folks, get your own Bogey Juice right now. Go to bogeyjuice.com. Use the code SP15. Get 15% off your order. It's a fabulous beverage. You can enjoy it as a cocktail, mix it with some soda, or have it as a shot. Single serving size available as well.
Laurence Gilman is the former assistant general manager of the Vancouver Canucks, NHL executive with the Leafs, Coyotes, and Jets as well, and he joins us from his Toronto abode. How are you?
I'm well, gentlemen. What could we possibly talk about?
Yeah, let's just start with some of the series around the playoffs, I guess. Or
As a managerial guy, as someone who has participated in these sorts of press conferences, or at least planned for these sorts of press conferences, what did you make of the performance yesterday from Messieurs Rutherford and Alvin?
Well, I think that first and foremost, they were incredibly candid. I think that if you're a Vancouver Canuck fan, you're not saying today that the GM and president of hockey operations are not in touch with where their hockey team is at, what place in the cosmos it's at. I thought they were both excellent, to be honest with you. They didn't hide the ball. They owned up for where the hockey team is at. They explained, fairly, they opened the kimono fairly wide to explain what happened with the team, which I don't think was shocking. But I think that they explained, as I said, where they're at, what they need to do to fix the hockey team, where it's strong, where it's weak. And all in all, I thought it was a very good performance by them.
Was there any time where you thought that's just giving away too much information on what's going on?
Yeah, I wouldn't have disclosed. I mean, listen, Jim Rutherford is far more experienced than I am. He's won 3 Stanley Cups, as we know, and he's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I don't know that I would have shown my hand with respect to how we think we're going to have to improve our center ice position, that being by trade, although I don't think he gave away the secret formula to Coca-Cola when he did that. I think his counterparts, his peers, know that their best route to fix the hockey club is by trade. It's not necessarily by free agency, not particularly in this market, which will ensue on July 1st.
Yeah, that's the debate for a lot of people today is, hey, we all knew a lot of the things that he said, but for him to say them was sort of the next step, right down to the Quinn Hughes and the Hughes brothers quote as well. Everybody knew that to be the case, but to say it is something else.
Well, that one I found incredibly interesting. And, again, Jim Rutherford, this is not his first rodeo.
No.
He's obviously a very veteran general manager, and veteran general managers don't say things off the cuff. My initial thought in hearing that and seeing that was that they've been put on notice by the Hughes camp, whether it's by the player or whether it's by his agent, Pat Brisson, that if they don't turn the fortunes of this hockey club around within a 2-year period when Quinn's contract expires, that he is going to seek to play with his brothers. And, you look at it that they have a year to sort this out, because if they go into the last year of that deal and this guy's not done, and he's told them this is where I'm headed, they're in the same boat that the Calgary Flames were in with Matthew Tkachuk, a few years ago. So I thought it was incredibly interesting. I would not be altogether shocked if they get a phone call from the New Jersey Devils, basically saying, so what's it going to take? And if you're talking to the Devils, they're a team that has a plethora of good young players and prospects. There could be the makings of a deal there. Not that I think it's going to happen anytime soon, but they're a team that does have the assets to make a trade like that.
What about the other side of that coin, Laurence? What do you think? Do they call the Devils at the end of the playoffs? Do they see if they can pry Jack Hughes out of there? There's
no chance that's happening. I think I have a better chance of getting elected Pope than that occurring. If you're Tom Fitzgerald, why would you make that deal? You've got both the brothers. They're both younger, and Quinn is the first one that's going to go to unrestricted free agency. All he has to do is sit back and let the Hughes boys make it happen by themselves over the family barbecue in the summer, and then wait for Quinn's agent to call when the time is right. Or he could make a deal, I suppose, with the Canucks, but we'll see.
Mr. Gilman, you're going to have to change faiths if you want to be a member of the Papabili or the Preferiti going into this conclave.
I didn't say I was looking to change squads. I just said I have a better chance of getting elected Pope than that occurring.
Well done. Well done. So then here's the deal. Who are you targeting in a trade as a top 2 center? I was surprised to hear him say we're going to need better than that when looking at the UFA center crop. Laurence, do you think that's a commentary on him not fancying his chances of landing one of those UFAs, or just bigger game hunting than the Tavareses, Duchesnes, and Sam Bennett's of the world?
Well, I think he's probably, they've probably been somewhat realistic in what the likelihood is that you're going to get one of those players. And if you're going to get one of those players, you're going to have to overpay to get them to come to you. And I think it's, serving notice that they're open for business. But let's be candid. What are they going to give up to get a number 1 center iceman if that's what they're pursuing? I mean, they don't have a ton of capital. Tom Wielander isn't going to get you a number 1 center. He might get you a prospect center that could develop into a number 1 player, a number 1 center. But if you think that in a first-round pick is going to land a bona fide number 1 center, you're not, you don't know the market for players. They might have to think about trading Thatcher Demco to somebody who's looking for a goaltender for a young center. I don't know. It's not going to be an easy feat for them, that's for sure. And they might need 2 if they don't sign Pius Suter as well.
Well, that's the thing. If you had Suter and Besser still under contract, one of those 2 guys could be used as some sort of bit of padding. But both of those guys are on their way out too. So you don't really you've even lost some pedigreed players here amongst your top 5 scorers. Well,
and if they're not, they're going to sign deals that have trade protection for them of some nature. So it's not like you're going to sign them. They're going to sign with you and turn around and get traded the next day.
No.
Hey, with a managerial ear, what did you make of the explanation about Miller and Pettersson, all that went wrong and what they were forced to do?
I applaud them for their candor. The question I probably would have asked if I were one of you people.
Oh,
how did you let it get to that point? Why did it go on for so long? Was there not something that you could have done to intervene before you had to, go nuclear, so to speak, and make a trade that you clearly didn't want to make? It's that one still baffles me. I don't, and he didn't, and obviously he said he wasn't going to disclose everything. There has to have been a little bit more that went on. That's probably a little salacious, but I don't know. I mean, I thought he was candid and forthright. Clearly, they had a problem in their dressing room. It spilled over, taking what he said to heart, spilled over into the other players, and ultimately they had to get rid of their problem rather than solve it.
I don't remember the 2 of you, Mike and you, being very critical of
that candid in a year-end presser.
Well,
you can hear some of that out of Gilly's mouth.
But you guys were players first. Like you guys defended your players to the ends of the world. Like I don't remember really anything coming close to a sharp, pointed criticism. The odd bit of realism of that guy could maybe stand to do this better, but nothing too pointed like we've seen about Pettersson over and over and over again. Can the relationship be saved here between now and July 1st when that no move clause kicks in? Because they quintupled down the other day or yesterday and continued down the. Now they softened it at the end by saying, hey, he's been in here every day since the season ended. I mean, that's 3 days and is working hard. But that was the only give, really. Is Elias Pettersson going to be able to look these guys in the eyes and feel like he's cared about it at this point?
Well, the stakes are pretty high for Elias Pettersson. I mean, he's a proud guy.
Yeah.
He's not going to want to go through this again. I can't imagine the fun meter was very high for him this year. So, he's got bigger fish to fry. He's got to turn his career around so that he is, again, looked upon as one of the top centers in the game. So I don't think the parties have the luxury of liking or disliking each other. Although I did note as well that they were giving platitudes to JT Miller walking out the door, yet they were critical of their own guy. And a lot of that criticism is deserved. He didn't. It's clear because they've said it enough times in 17 different languages that whatever the reason, whether it was injuries or whether it was work ethic, he didn't put the work in the summertime and clearly didn't come in to camp in good enough condition to perform at a high level. And like a player, like Jeremy Swayman in Boston who misses training camp, there's an analogy there. If you're not at your best at the beginning, you're falling behind fast, and it's impossible to catch up through the season. And, I didn't think Pettersson was as bad as as people said he was for the whole year. And I definitely think he was getting better as the season went on. And whatever happened, whatever was going on with between him and JT Miller clearly impacted his performance.
You remain a Elias believer then, Laurence?
I do. Players like that don't come along very often. And again, I've said it a bunch of times with you guys. Everybody's got problems. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got problems. Either solve your problem or get rid of your problem. Based on where they're at, I wouldn't be getting rid of centers at this point in time. I would be, as Jim Rutherford said, focusing their energy on acquiring centers right now.
Yeah. With the managerial, I think it was a bit of a clunky explanation from Rutherford because he said Elias is always going to get his points when really Elias didn't get his points this past year. But with the managerial year, did you understand what Rutherford was getting at with regards to the improvements Elias has to make, the changes Elias has to make if he's going to be a centerpiece player on a
I think what he was basically saying was I want to see him compete harder in both ends of the rink, although I do think he's a pretty good defensive hockey player when he wants to be. But I think, and he drew the analogy to Steve Yzerman, when Scotty Bowman came into Detroit and changed the way, his game was and, led to all those championships. I think it was clearly a shot over the bow to the player that we need you to come in and give a rat's ass meter needs to be at a much, much higher level on a daily basis than it has been this past year.
It's sort of the curse of having sipped from the holy chalice, isn't it? I mean, Rutherford has seen Sidney Crosby in action, and you can never put the genie back in the bottle having seen that. You just want everybody to be that.
Boy, there's a lot of catechism today. For
yes, true. Yes.
Jewish guest. I apologize, Laurence. We're
but after having been around Crosby, the standard is pretty high for these two.
Well, and it also gives him credibility, though, when he talks to players and says, I witnessed it with Sidney Crosby every day. And that's why he's won 3 Stanley Cups. And that's why he's, had more points per game seasons than any player in the history of the National Hockey League, including Wayne Gretzky. It gives him the ability and the right to look a player in the eye and say that and have it land, and with impact.
I want to put something to you, Laurence, and I'm going to read directly from a tweet that I received just moments ago, because we always talk about this in media, but I don't think we always do a great job of explaining the importance of a practice facility, and in part because it's typically a place we don't get to go and we don't see and know everything that goes on there. But I just got a tweet. What's the big deal on a practice facility? Don't they have everything they need at Rogers Arena? And don't the players mostly live around downtown? Why ask them to drive to Surrey or wherever when everything is already in one place? Edify us, please.
Well, a practice facility serves a lot of purposes. Number one, I look at, the Toronto Maple Leafs have as good a practice facility as anybody out there. And, you have a commercial kitchen in it and a team of chefs that are pumping out, healthy gourmet meals to players and staff, 3 squares a day when they're not playing NHL games. You have state-of-the-art facility, in terms of gym equipment, all kinds of things that you simply can't have in an arena because you just don't have the dedicated space, because an arena is a dedicated footprint. You have multiple sheets of ice where you can send injured players out on one surface and run a team practice on the other, or you can send the power play off to work on a different ice surface and have your penalty killing, work on another, or have your young players working. It's a place that the players, can go, and it's not the arena. Like it breaks the monotony of going to the same place every day. There are only 2 teams in the National Hockey League that don't have practice facilities, and that's the Canucks and the Calgary Flames. And that's going to be rectified for the Flames when they build their new arena. People in Vancouver, with all due respect, don't understand it because they haven't seen it. Some of these practice facilities, like Montreal's in Brossard, Quebec, it's unbelievable. And it's also a community asset, I would add, because it draws people there. But having a practice facility is a huge, huge deal. And not just hockey, in every sport, basketball, football, they all have, practice facilities of one type or another.
It's too bad you don't have that plot in Dunbar anymore, Gilman. There's a development opportunity here.
He touched on something that was pretty, poignant. There aren't enough rinks in Vancouver.
That is true.
There's never been enough rinks in Vancouver. And, it's no small feat. Like, to build a practice facility could be $30 million without talking about the land. That's a big, big venture. But it's also a recruiting tool as well. So it is something, easy for me to spend the Aquilini's money, but it is something that the Canucks have had. It's been long overdue. Let's put it that way.
All right. We'll look for the white smoke between now and next week. Thank you for
Just
that.
in case you get the call. You never know.
Don't hold your breath, gentlemen.
Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. You know where I'd rather be today? Not that I have anything against the Wall Center. It's a wonderful spot. Fine digs. Book a room. How about the Whistler Golf Club? The Arnold Palmer-designed Whistler Golf Club, where spring preparations are underway. Exciting opening day on May 9th. Counting down to that. Now accepting online bookings for the entirety of the 2025 season. No need to wait. Get those times locked in. And if you do have a group of 12 or more, we really encourage you to call the Whistler Golf Club or book and get those times on hold. The prime times, they fill up fast. So if you're planning that buddy trip, get in touch, get your tee times, and tell them about your group, whistlergolf.com/groups, and follow on social media at Whistler Golf. As we bring in the Ontario Club champion, the former executive producer, Hockey Night in Canada from Oliver, British Columbia, Mr. John Shannon. How are you?
A little angry that your sponsorship's about a damn golf course. We're not even open here yet.
We saved that one for you, John.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know. But we are open Thursday. We will
good.
be open Thursday. This has been horrendous. I mean, now I am an old man. I'm talking about the weather.
Just don't yell at clouds, John.
We have had a horrendous winter / spring here. So at least there's hockey teams playing here.
I was going to say, yeah, that's the one thing you do have over BC. You got a couple of hockey teams.
They have to win, though. Otherwise, it'll be an even worse spring.
Well, the thing is, one of them is getting through regardless.
That's right.
So.
That's right. One team from Ontario is getting through. I can't believe I'm actually thinking I'm from Ontario. I just tell people
exactly.
I tell people I live in exile. So
shame. As a matter of fact, we will forget this conversation ever happened. The most famous man from Oliver, British Columbia, John Shannon, is joining us.
Last night, by the way, if we're looking at the playoffs, last night saved the NHL playoffs, didn't it?
Come on. We're 2 days in.
No, but it was two bad days. It was two bad days.
It was two not so great days, but yesterday, wow, that was
great.
I got home from the golf course, John, just in time.
My semantics course comes out Stanley Cup playoffs, not NHL playoffs. Look at what's on the ice. Stanley Cup playoffs.
Absolutely.
Don't become an American on us. Say NHL playoffs. Okay.
That's right.
And the other thing is, on the weekend, with the 5 games that we had, there was really only one that was compelling, and that was the first game of Winnipeg St. Louis, and it was compelling, and it did carry on last night. And you know, they refrained from all my friends, even at 2 a.m. when we were finally wrapping things up, was thank goodness they finally had a good night of hockey, because it had not been very good until last night. And last night was electric.
It was.
And it made you remember how great Stanley Cup playoffs can be. Before
we get on to the Canucks and that drop the mic press conference yesterday from Jim Rutherford, do you have an early observation? Is there a team you feel a whole lot better about or worse about here after the early going in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Well, I actually feel better about the Edmonton Oilers because at 4-0, I was looking at a sweep. I just thought that they had nothing going for them. Was this going to be the blueprint for the next 3.5 games that the Kings were going to do it? But then you finally saw a team start to play together. The Oilers did not play well together for the first 2 periods, and once Leon and Connor got their act together, it was pretty impressive. The other one, you do have to really give a salute to what Winnipeg is doing. They are playing physical, they are playing fast, they are getting goaltending from Connor Hellebuyck. I'm not for 1 second saying that this series may not be tied at 2 after 4 games in St. Louis, but Winnipeg has been impressive.
All right, under your boy Rutherford and the press conference yesterday, what caught your ear?
Oh, how long
Story
is this
time
show?
with Jimmy.
How long is this show? Well, hold on here. So my first thought was, you guys wanted to be transparent. You got transparent.
We got transparency. Yeah,
we could see to the bottom of the ocean.
Marks for candor. Yeah. Absolutely, 10 out of 10.
So So stop bitching, okay?
Hey, let me ask this by way of context and edification, because you go all the way back with Jim from the moment he started managing hockey clubs. Is this always him, or is he sort of reached a level in stature in life and career where he's just more willing to say things that other GMs, that other people in his positions aren't willing to say?
I think when you have your name on the Stanley Cup 3 times, when you have, built one franchise almost from scratch in Carolina, when you have resurrected a team in Pittsburgh, and then have done the same thing in Vancouver, it gives you license. And speaking from my own personal experience, the older you get, the more candid you become, because there are less worries in the world to go on. When Jim came to Vancouver, I think that was really a turning point for him to say, you know what, I left Pittsburgh because they wouldn't let me do it my way. The only way I'm taking another job is if I can do it my way. And I think we got a sense of that. Certainly got a sense of that yesterday with the press conference.
He admitted what kind of trouble he feels that they are in at the forward positions, particularly at center. Given what you just said, doing it my way, do you have confidence that Jim Rutherford can pull off what he admits is going to be really tough and really expensive? Every
time people count this guy out, he comes back. I think there are a lot of people in Pittsburgh that didn't think he would get another job. I think when he was kind of pushed aside in Carolina, I think we were all shocked that he got the job in Pittsburgh. Never count this guy out. He is a fighter. He is candid. He is loyal. There are so many things that this guy does behind the scenes with people, with discretion, that we will never know about. And I know that the word discreet may not be appropriate after yesterday, but I do think that this guy does always have a plan, and has learned over the years, all the way back to his time in junior hockey in Ontario, that he has to adapt at times, and he has to be prepared to provide alternatives. The challenge is, and this is me, not him. The challenge is by July 1st, I still think there's a possibility that they might be without their number 1 and number 2 that started the season. That is a possibility. I don't think they want it to happen. I think that, what yesterday was for me was they were trying to really boost up Pettersson's stock, both internally and externally. But if you think that, if I would have told you last October, by the way, next year, Pettersson and Miller might not both be here, I think you would have told me I was full of it.
What did you make about the Quinn Hughes part?
First of all, when he started to talk, the hair started to stand on the back of my head, wondering how quickly the tampering charges would occur. But then he admitted he didn't want to go any farther because of fear of tampering. So we're talking about something that is at least 2 seasons away. At least 2 seasons away.
Is it though, John? At this time next year, if you're out of the playoffs, Quinn has 1 more year to go and doesn't want to talk extension on July 1st. Do you not have to make the move then?
Well, I think they might have learned a little bit of a lesson. Yeah, I think, but again, I think it's easier to do sky is falling than look at the other side. And Quinn Hughes is going to be a Vancouver Canucks next year, and let's see what happens. I mean, who's the coach next year? Isn't that a bigger question, even in the Quinn Hughes conversation?
I think so. What are you hearing there? Are you hearing anything on Tocchet? And there's some new openings since we last talked to you.
Yeah, and there might be a few more too. So the one thing we did talk about last week is that we knew full well that they were not going to hold Tocchet to the extra clause in the contract. That just doesn't make sense. That's not the way you do fair, loyal, and good business in the National Hockey League. So when they didn't, exercise the option, and everybody's talked about it, they've offered Rick more money than any other coach in the history of the franchise to stay. Now they just have to wait and see. And when the dust settles, if the dust settles this week or next week, I suspect it'll be later this week. I'm not that, but personally, I'm not that optimistic that he's coming back.
Really? What makes you say that?
I just think when you tell everybody, and I don't have inside knowledge, I'm just trying to read the room. When you tell everybody that we've given our best offer, we really like him, we're not going to do the option. The onus is now on Rick. The onus is completely on Rick. And if that was the case, why isn't Rick there now? Why isn't Rick signed now? So it goes to what other options does Rick have at this point?
Is it money or hockey though? Do you think Rick is more wanting to find a different hockey situation, or does he just want more money?
Or does he want to coach? Because darn well he's got a seat at TNT if he doesn't coach. So I don't know that. I don't know that. I have not asked Rick that question. But I would say that if the more time goes on, the less optimistic I am of Rick Tocchet staying in Vancouver.
You said that,
and the other thing is by saying we're not going to exercise that option, that effectively
makes him a free agent. It makes him a free agent. Yeah. So and there are 6 openings in this league right now, and there are 6 very attractive situations, I think, in the net. And I would actually say a 7th, because I think Vancouver's a great job. It is a great job and a great hockey town, but it's tough. If you look at all of those other cities that are looking for head coaches, the spotlight is brighter in Vancouver than anywhere else. I would put Boston with a really bright spotlight as well. I think you can get lost in New York. I think Philly would be the easy one for Rick, but who knows if it's even been offered to Rick. So there are lots of scenarios that you can say Vancouver is as great a hockey city to coach in than any of them, but it is a tough city to coach.
And that's not a spotlight in Anaheim. That's just the sun. But it sounds like you subscribe to the idea that Rick Tocchet's future is tied to Quinn Hughes' future. That Quinn Hughes, really wants Rick Tocchet to come back.
I think it's almost the other way around. When I think that if based on conversation about Quinn Hughes next year, if Rick Tocchet's here coaching this team, I feel better about Quinn Hughes' future in Vancouver. I think that the Quinn Hughes endorsement of Tocchet helped? I think it probably helped. I also think that, Elvin and Rutherford have always liked Tocchet and wanted him to stay long term, but he has to want to stay.
Yeah.
He has to want to be there.
He's not the rarer commodity though. Like, they have to put everything they can into Quinn Hughes without, coaches do grow on trees. Quinn Hughes' don't.
Correct. But they have some time with Hughes. They have some time. It is not something that has to be decided by the draft or the draft lottery. It is something that can be decided and can be worked on with Pat Brisson and the group for the next, in theory, 24 months.
Mm-hmm.
To those, you mentioned earlier about building Elias up or building his value up internally or externally. To some, it has reached the level of piling on Elias. That we've heard the sort of commentary about preparation, practice habits. summer training and everything else that has been publicly litigated here. Is it too much for you? Or are they just better off shutting yap now and seeing what kind of reception they got on their message from number 40?
Well, I think they're done now. I don't think they need to do more now. And I think that goes back to the original point about you wanted transparency, you got transparency. And so now let's get on with the job of rebuilding the player. Let's give him a chance. Yesterday was a public endorsement of Pettersson. There's no question. It was a public endorsement. But it also, it could be interpreted as saying, oh, he's going to work his way, and then we have to figure out what role he has on our hockey club. So I don't think that we're going to see another press conference or we're going to see more interviews. From that perspective, I think that they spoke their mind and set the table, and let's see what happens between now and July 1st.
Alvin saying I'd be stupid not to listen. That's just a throwaway comment, or is that feathering the nest of don't be surprised when it happens?
It's a good question. There was something else. You wonder with Patrick, and I don't know him very well. It's almost like the discussion about the offers at Besser at the trade deadline. When he said you'd be embarrassed if I told you what the offers are. I'd be embarrassed, to paraphrase. I think they're trying to be so darn candid. I think they're trying to be so darn honest. Sometimes it might be interpreted differently. I just, that's Jimmy has one set of ways of doing it for Jim that's best for Jim Rutherford. That doesn't necessarily mean the same could be said that it's best for Patrick Alvin to operate that way. Patrick has to find his own way to operate and say what he needs to say. That's a difficult one to navigate.
I don't think he'll ever be as candid as Jimmy, or at least it may take 30, 40 years. But I do think he has learned some of those lessons because he has gotten better as a public communicator. Although I'm not sure the trade deadline was his. I would say this with a ton of respect, And I know he's lived here a while. English is not his first language, and every once in a while, Scandinavian honesty gets in the way. Trust me, I'm married to a Scandinavian. Okay, there you go.
I lived it. I understand it.
Mm-hmm. Marvelous stuff, Mr. Shannon. You enjoy the Stanley Cup playoffs going on all around you. Should be a good night tonight, and fairways and greens, brother. Fairways and greens.
I tell you what, I'm going to start complaining about those 8 p.m. Pacific start times like tonight. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh,
it's great for us. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Hockey deep into the nights.
Yes.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Cheers, boy. Cheers.
Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center, where you turn game night into a game weekend. Book your stay here at the Wall. Enjoy an exclusive Sick Harrison Price rate. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for us. Some blackout dates supply based on availability.
Do you need joy in your life? Given that you're a fan of
Always.
this team, I think you probably need some joy.
I'm a fan of joy.
The BZ4X from Toyota provides only joy. It's just a super fun car to drive. It suits your West Coast lifestyle. You get to ride in the HOV lane all the time, even when you're solo, and you get to pass by the gas station no matter what that sign reads.
If you're commuting on a daily basis, like, what is the monetary value for you of the HOV lane? It's got to be pretty high, right? Like, your time is worthwhile.
It has to be part of your strategy. The BZ4X, go visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer, shoptoyota.ca, and find out that you can get up to $6,500 in rebates and incentives. Finance it at 0.99% APR for 36 months. Check it out, shoptoyota.ca.
I mean, if you're buying a downtown Vancouver parking spot for 6 figures, the HOV lane... That's huge cheese.
Oh, God.
NHL playoffs Winnipeg up 2-0 here. Colorado, Dallas. Wow. What a game. Fun game.
Yeah.
Tied 1-1. Caps early lead on the Habs, and LA and Edmonton. Speaking of fun games, whew, almost a reverse miracle on Manchester there last night with the Oilers coming storming back from 4-0. But
it was good fun. It was really good fun.
Stuart Skinnerd again. That floater to win the game. Like, I guess he's just expecting a real shot and not something that's deflected.
Oh, it's a total muffin.
Oodles
he makes the kick
time
save
to get to
the right pad kick save, and then count 2 beats.
Oh,
and it's fluttering off his shoulder and hit.
yeah. I still cannot. There's several things I can't believe about the Oilers. Number one, that they made their managerial change last year late, like beyond the time when Stan Bowman could completely affect the team for this season. And then number two, that they're once again in a Stanley Cup playoffs with Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard. Like, how did you not upgrade in the league? Like, I just don't get it. Give yourself another option there, Edmonton. Anyways, we'll see where it goes. Yeah. Seattle Fire's head coach Dan Bylsma, he lasts just a year on the job. Ron Francis has been reassigned to president. I did not say promoted, and with reason. And former Jim Rutherford disciple Jason Botterill takes over as general manager.
So he's a neutered executive now? Is that what he is?
GM in Buffalo. Well, so my understanding is that the husband of Miss Bonderman, who now owns the team and is the controlling owner after the passing of her father last year, he ran the Coachella Valley franchise. He was quite close with Botterill and with Bylsma. It seems like a middling position here because I don't think Francis ever wanted to fire Dave Haxtell, let alone hire Dan Bylsma. I actually don't think coaching was the issue with Seattle. He had some players make improvements last year, especially the young players. Shane Wright was terrific down the stretch. So it looks like, Francis got his choice that you're moving on from coach, but he's more ornamental now with Botterill running the day-to-day.
Yeah.
Anyways, Seattle now joins the list of Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, the New York Rangers, and Anaheim Ducks that have coaching vacancies. And, of course, the Vancouver Canucks may soon follow if they can't come to an agreement with Rick Tocchet, something we didn't get deep into yesterday, but Rutherford and Alvin acknowledging they will not be exercising the option on the coach and have to come to a long-term or an extension. Doesn't have to be long-term, but an extension with Tocchet. That does grease the skids a little bit if Rick envies the job in Philadelphia, of course, where he's a legendary player and where one of his great friends, Keith Jones, runs the team, or on Broadway, right, with the Rangers, or two original 6 franchises, Chicago and Boston. Just about anywhere he goes, I would think he would have more runway than what he would have here in Vancouver. I don't suspect that the Canucks would want to make a coaching change after signing him to an extension, but if things are going poorly in December next year and you've kept Pettersson and Pettersson continues to struggle and not exactly jive with this coach, you may not have an option, right? And Rick's a smart guy. Like, I think he can understand the stakes going forward here in Vancouver, especially if you keep Pettersson, right? Because then you're going to need a head to roll. It probably won't be Petey with a no-move clause. While also understanding how big a deal he can be in some of these other markets with, in some cases, very little pressure to win next year.
I'll devil's advocate you for a second here. They just traded a $9 million guy with a no move. It's not impossible. You'd be able to convince Petey to waive the no move, I think, by saying, hey, you just need to change. I think you'd be able to convince him.
Yeah.
But your value in December for a struggling PD is now at a absolute basement low. So
it's hard to move an $11.6 million
that too,
player
you'd have to probably hold.
Season,
yeah.
Right? So
no, it's the other downside about the talk and negotiations right now, if they don't come to an agreement, you're now competing with 6 other teams for the open candidates.
Yes, for sure.
Elsewhere. So like everybody needs a coach. you're not necessarily going to get the guy you like.
Name to keep in mind if the Canucks move, if Tocchet is not back. Mike Vellucci, assistant coach with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Rutherford worked with him in Pittsburgh. Rutherford worked with him in Carolina. And they both have the Plymouth Whalers of the OHL in common way back in the day. Just a name to squirrel away there in case the Canucks are on a coaching search. Well done.
Doesn't take long to squirrel. I've already squirreled it.
Well, yeah. Everything squirreled moves at a fast pace, no?
Yeah.
Jury selection begins today in the trial of 5 former NHLers accused of sexual assault. Michael McLeod, Alex Formanton, Carter Hart, Dylan Dubé, and Cal Foote, the son of Canucks assistant coach Adam Foote, as part of that Canadian World Junior Camp in 2018. The players have pleaded not guilty before a packed courtroom in London, Ontario. Rick Westhead of TSN reporting at least 4 members of that team will be called to testify, though not necessarily in person. We're not going to run through the entirety of that team, but some of the members of that club include Cale Makar, Colorado defenseman, Drake Batherson, Ottawa Senators forward, Columbus defenseman Dante Fabro, a Vancouverite, St. Louis forward Robert Thomas. Some of these guys, of course, are in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Former Vancouver Canuck Jonah Gadjevich, also a member of that team. So we'll see where it goes, but I imagine that this is going to be most disturbing theater.
And a good witness is a good witness, regardless of their hockey statistics. But I will say that if you call a guy like a Cale Makar, who has far more to lose theoretically, it does carry a little bit more gravitas that this is a guy that has everything in, his orbit right now, and he's willing to go on the stand and say whatever he's going to say. Then I think that does carry a little bit more than getting a fourth-line NHL player to say something.
Fair enough. Makar's already spoken about this, or at least answered questions about it.
Different on the stand, obviously. Yeah.
We also know what kind of bright, personable young man Jonah Gadjevich is, right, Blake? Yeah. Like, there are tons of people skills there. I mean, he always struck me as a sincere, thoughtful guy. Anyways, we'll see where that goes. But if you're going to follow that, be prepared. It is going to be most disturbing. Vancouver Canadians outfielder Victor Arias, the Northwest League Player of the Week, after he hits 400 with a couple of doubles, a home run, 7 runs, 4 RBI, 5 walks, and 2 stolen bases. He's only the number 29 prospect for the Jays, according to MLB Pipeline. But I think you're going to see him jump up the ranks here. He hit a long home run during Friday's nooner to right field. He's a little guy, just 5'9", but he's known as a bulldog for all the intensity and grit that he has out there on the field. 21-year-old Venezuelan career, 808 OPS, and the C's are at it tonight in Everett. Begin a 6-gamer. Grant Rogers puts his spotless ERA of 0 through 15 innings pitched on the line. And, of course, a week from today, 29th of April, Vancouver back at the Nat for a 6-game series against Hillsborough. Get your tickets, 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com. Good luck to the Victoria Royals tonight. They play Game 6 at Spokane, down 3-2 in the series, facing elimination. Game 7 would be tomorrow in this WHL second-round playoff series. And the winner is going to take on either Everett or Portland. That series is tied 3-3 with Game 7 going tonight. I played with golf with a former Portland Winterhawk yesterday. It was telling me how great the franchise treated players way back in the day. And congrats to Desiree Scott, long-standing member of the Canadian women's national team soccer, 15 seasons with the club, 187 caps, 144 starts. She's retiring from international competition at age 37. She'll have a special celebration match in her native Winnipeg on May 31st in a friendly against Haiti. This is one of the builders of the program. I know Christine Sinclair gets all of the accolades, and rightfully so. but Desiree was right there. A gold medalist, a 2-time bronze medalist, played in 3 World Cups for Canada. Poll question results.
They're playing 2 friendlies in different spots, by the way.
They're
Winnipeg and a Montreal.
And Montreal, both against Haiti.
Which is nice for different markets to get a look. You know?
Well, and the Haitians, I suspect, will have some support in Montreal. There's a big Haitian community there. Yeah. They speak French in Haiti. Surrey Mitsubishi poll question results from Monday asked you, should the Canucks offer New Jersey sun, moon, and stars for Jack Hughes? Yes or no? The people said
yes.
Yes.
80.
79. Pretty good. Well, more likely Quinn to New Jersey. Saw a lot of that.
Yeah.
The defeatism, everybody. Vlad, trade Quinn for the sun, moon, and stars instead. Okay. Van Fnac, yes. Only problem, they don't have the sun and moon. Maybe a couple of distant stars. And Luigi, they should, but Jersey won't do it. Like it or not, Quinn hits UFA first and goes to New Jersey to play with his bros. Canucks could offer Quinn $8 by $17 million. He'd still walk. Not often you get a chance to play with family member, let alone 2. They'll make history together. No, can't have that. Got to trade Quinn before you let him walk in free agency, before you walk him into free agency to the Devils.
Quinn Hughes for Hischier and Nemec. Who says no?
Vancouver.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's probably true.
Yeah. Not yet. That's the sort of trade that you make next summer, not this summer, when Quinn has 1 year left.
Yeah.
Right now, you need more. Errors and Omissions brought to you today by Ben Moss, a proudly Canadian-owned, operated company with a history dating back more than 100 years. You can find them in 5 places in BC: Abbotsford, Chilliwack, Victoria, Coquitlam Center, Willowbrook, and Langley. Committed to customer satisfaction. Check out the large selection: Canadian mine diamonds, lab-grown diamonds. They got mine diamonds with payment plans to suit your needs. For more info, benmoss.com. Ben Moss, for the love of jewelry. I have a few on myself here. One on J-Paddle. We corrected it in time. Benning was fined for tampering with PK Subban, not Steven Stamkos. I said Jeff would be at Abbotsford for the playoff games. No, but Rink-Wide Vancouver, Abbey Edition gets going tomorrow night, game 1. And said it was a record crowd for the Warriors. It fell just shy, 10,876 at Rogers Arena Friday for the Warriors match.
Pretty close.
I think they may do better this week here for the playoff game.
Their average game attendance this year was a record, so there was a record set. So.
Well done. Yeah. Anything to self-report? Anything that Yerke has reported?
No.
Anything from
silence.
the inbox?
Silence.
Wow. Radio silence. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. Live on many of those platforms. Noon Pacific time weekdays. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. And keep it local.